All righty, so seeing we have a quorum, I will call to order the meeting of the Airport Commission for Commissioners Penny Lovely, do you please acknowledge yourselves?
Chip Mason is here.
Good.
Jeff Shulman is here as well.
Thank you, Jeff. No formality, but request by the city attorney's office. All right, so next up is a motion to amend or adopt the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as proposed? So moved. That is moved by Greg. Is there a second? Second by Robin. Any discussion or proposed changes to the agenda? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Abstentions? We have an agenda. And next item on for bids is the public forum. And I do not show that we have any members of the public here tonight. So we'll close public forum. We want to item 4, which is the consent agenda. Do I hear any motion to approve the contents of the consent agenda? So moved. As moved by Greg. Is there a second? Second by Robin. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? We can approve the consent agenda. Next up is item 5, action items. Item 5.1 is the BSD Tech Center South Hangar. I'd be willing to entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Finance Council the approval of leasing space to the Burlington School District is authorized as outlined in our agenda packet. Do we hear a motion to that effect? So moved. That is moved by Greg. Is there a second? Second by Robin. And discussion to be led by Nick.
Yeah, so super excited to bring this formally to you with the partnership of the Burlington School District, the Technical Center, and of course the airport. We've been negotiating and designing and working with the school district as well as our engineering partners for the last many months. Larry's been working with McFarland Johnson to support the school district's vision of what this new building will look like, which is now officially labeled as 200 Da Vinci Drive. That's a new street address. This is about a 32,000 square foot existing hangar that is being renovated by the school district. The school district did competitively bid to lease this particular space, all to support their aviation technical program right here at the airport. They currently do have a program here at one of our much older hangars and much outdated facilities. So this investment into our facility is going to be pretty significant, not just for their program, but also for the airport. As you can see from the memo, they're looking at approximately $11.5 million of investment into this building. And that would be supported throughout their lease term. That lease term is a time of 40 years. And this $11.5 million of capital upgrades would be granted to them in a credit because the investment is to our building over that 40-year period of time. That doesn't mean all of the investment is going to come out of the lease rate. That means a pretty significant portion will be removed from a fair market value rent through lease credits. The first 2 years, as they settle, design, build, etc., will be at rent free, and then over the remaining course of the lease, the investment would be credited back. Of the fair market value rent, which right now is around $200,000 annually of rent payment to. Of that $200,000, approximately $150,000 would be credited, and their cash payment starting on year 3 to the airport would be approximately $50,000. Of course, that will fluctuate over time. There's still CPI increases and standard term in which to increase that rental cost in. Very similar to other leases, we have capital reserve accounts. We have a very standard language within our lease, which both Jeff Glassford and our outside counsel have reviewed pretty significantly. And I'm happy to report that just last night, the Burlington School District the board, Burlington School District Board, also reviewed this lease and unanimously approved it at their board meeting. What you see in your packet is not just the lease agreement, but also many of the documents associated with it, including the schematic plans and the rent schedule associated with that 40-year time. My request for you tonight is to recommend this to the Board of Finance City Council for mayoral signature on this really amazing partnership that we're going to continue with the school district.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions?
Yeah, so the way I understand it is the 11.5 is going to the architects and the builders, right? That's for the renovations. Yeah.
That's for the total project.
Yeah, for the total project. And then
Correct. So I don't know exactly how much the cost of the renovations are going to be. It's going to be higher than 11.5. We are crediting that.
but we're not actually paying the bills for the renovation, right?
That is
It's
correct.
coming out of the grant, basically. Okay.
Yeah, and that's a great point. So the school district does have a pretty substantial grant, $9.9 million grant to support their system. They do have cash reserve to also support additional costs. But all of those expenses, especially for the build out and the remaining portion of the design work, will be expended with the Burlington School District. You won't see any expenses associated with architects.
Right.
The only difference is between when we started and now, we have spent around $500,000, and Marie, she might have a more accurate number than that, more up to date number than that. However, that $500,000 was taken from an older NASA the airport.
Easy grants move around. Yeah,
And we couldn't use it for anything else except for high school education of age.
so that takes care of that. So then you're sort of, the airport is sort of giving them a little bit of grace in that first 2 years just to get in and get settled before they start applying the rent. And then the rent gets an education sort of discount. So, but will the rent be significantly higher than at the end when it all comes out in the mail?
Yeah.
Higher than what it was before?
With
the whole building.
it's almost exactly the same.
Oh, okay.
When you combine the rent credit and the actual cash payment, it is almost identical within a few $1,000s.
Okay, so for education, that's gonna make a big deal, and I'm sure that's the first time that Burlington ever unanimously decided on anything. So that's really good that they recognize what a deal it is to get that carry through on a much bigger facility and a brand new facility, even though it's also big for the airport too, right? We get basically a brand new hangar.
That's 100% correct. Yep.
Yeah, and then the only other question I have is, there was talk before that Burlington wanted to put other pieces of tech center in there.
Yep.
And there was concern that the grant could be negatively affected, and thus everything moving forward.
Yep.
And so they really, everybody really was hopeful in a way, because that relieves some tension. This is community-wide in Burlington I'm talking about. That relieves some tension on where the heck is everybody else gonna go, but maybe not the right fit. So
Yeah.
where are we at with that?
Great question, and it tees me up for an answer in format of why you're here today and not last week. So working with your chair of the board, we were waiting for FAA approval on this particular lease, because there's a lot of factors to this. There's a school, there's a technical program that there was some concern on what type of particular program and use a hangar was going to be used for. I am happy to report that the FAA has reviewed and accepted. They generally don't approve leases, or they've accepted to make sure that we, the airport, the city, are in compliance with all of our grant assurances. They've seen that and accepted that. And any other future programs that we're building, whether it's auto mechanics or any of those types of programs, would have to be reviewed not only by the city, but they would have to go through some of their processes on curriculum based on their restrictions as part of their. It's not our grant that
Right.
it's their grant. So there's a dual kind of approval process in the future of any future use of this.
Yeah.
From our point of view, it has to be an aviation use for this particular.
Yeah, okay, so that's where we're at.
That's
For
where.
aviation, and because we're aviation, we still get the 9.9, and no one's gonna question it, and they're gonna end up with C.
You got it.
Chip?
Thanks, Tim. Couple sort of immediate question for Nick. I don't, can you articulate what the capital upgrades are? I'm sort of thinking through the I mean, are these upgrades that are specific and unique to their use such that if they left, we'd have to use airport dollars to tear them out and start over? Or are these upgrades that truly add value in the event, which I don't think is going to happen, but that they were to depart within, short of the 40-year term?
Yeah, no, good question. And we evaluate that, both on this lease and other leases to make sure that we're performing exactly how you just detailed it. We want the investment very similar to the Beta lease, where the investment that they made was for long-term use of the airport. The school district is doing the same thing, where every investment that they're making into the building has to be recognized that it's a long-term use of that facility, whether they're in there or not. I agree. I don't wish for, and even the school board last night, this is a long lease, right? We don't know what's going to happen in that time period. But even if something were to happen and we needed to change or demolish or whatever, that's also why we put language in for a capital reserve account and some other items to recognize changes that might need to happen in the future. First and foremost, the credit is associated with major improvements to this pretty aged building, much newer than the building that they're in currently, but still aged to update that particular building.
So you just answered my second question, which relates to the capital reserve. I don't know if it's just my copy that I'm getting or if there's not, but the lease agreement doesn't seem to be appended or as an attachment on at least what I called up. So again, no, I'm still going to vote for this, but that was the question to me because I didn't see in your summary reference to a capital reserve, but you're telling me, Nick, that the lease agreement does call for one, and you're comfortable that it's a sufficient amount to remove the improvements in the event that they depart short of the 40-year term.
That's right, and even throughout the term, if we need to do a it should be in there. You should have 1, 2, 3. Well, there should be 6 attachments to item 5.1, both the memo and then exhibits, and then there's what we refer to as attachment A, which is the lease agreement on civic clerk.
Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah, there's 6.
I don't know what weird version I'm in, but I clicked on the link. I have the schematics.
Yeah, I think you have the same thing that I have, Chip, where if you click to download the agenda packet, it doesn't have the contract in the agenda packet.
Okay. Well, I'm glad it's not just me, Tim. So, okay, great.
And this also was obviously not related to the airport commission, but this also was on for those listeners, on the Burlington School District agenda item as well, same documents. They happen to use board docs, a different version, our old version that we use. That's what I said.
All right, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, hopefully you can hear me okay. Nick, did you say that, what was the $200,000 figure that you mentioned? Is that existing rent right now?
We don't currently have a tenant in that hangar right now. We have very short-term agreements with individual aircraft owners that are kind of popping in and out. Our prior tenant was approximately $200,000 annually. And the new tenant, Burlington School District, through both their credit and cash payments, will be at approximately $200,000 annually, starting on year 1 with full credit for year 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And year 3 will be both.
Got it. I guess what I was trying to get at was whether be a net loss in the short term while we're applying these credits is as valuable as the capital improvements are, but it doesn't sound like that's really the case because we don't have any kind of significant revenue coming in currently. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. These very short term, agreements are for Cessna size aircraft that are month to month and really just get us between a new tenant, which after this we'll have that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so just so that I have the vision, the last time that I looked at sort of the building plan and what was going in there, there's already actually classrooms in there, there's briefing rooms in there in the bottom. I don't know if they're gonna tear those out. But mostly the hangar is air, right? It's because you're gonna be working on stuff. So you're gonna have a really, really good hangar with some classroom space, some briefing space, some office space that you could use for anything. But the majority of a hangar is meant to be air. And that's what it will still be, because it will be housing airplanes that students are working on, maybe a simulator, but those are movable. So the improvements, if you can picture, is just a really, really big, good box. Few offices and places for maintenance to store tools.
And one of the requests that we have to the school district, we're not mandating it or requiring it in the lease, but one of the requests and advantages for them, for the district, is to utilize that open air hangar for existing general aviation request orders. So if an aircraft owner has an aircraft that they need to store and the district has space, we would like the district to utilize that space to help general aviation out, which I think is a possibility. The advantage to the district is that would be a revenue source to them to support this lease as well.
And that falls under what they're allowed to do with that space.
Correct. So leasing those types of areas. So there's some process to go through it, but yes.
Jeff, did you have another question? Jeff, you're unmuted if you're talking.
Forgot to lower my hand. No question.
Oh, okay. Commissioners, anything else for Nick on this item?
Nick, just so I have, Robin used the word vision before, just so I can envision what's happening. I see that there are landing fees that they are responsible for. So I'm guessing that they're all in on what they're doing there. They're actually going to be working on planes and sending planes up and having them land, and that's where the landing fees come in?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So the technical center won't be. The technical center are going to be training what's called airframe and power plant mechanics, A&P mechanics to get high school age kids to a certification and potentially a job after this. However, the tech center and the school district are working with Flight Academy, with the local schools around it. So there's a lot of synergy within that. Beta Technologies, even a lot of synergy within that footprint right there to do that. But for example, today they have, I want to say, a dozen or so aircraft, both within their existing space and then outside of the ramp. None of them are airworthy. They take engines apart and put them back together to make sure that they don't have the next generation of A&P mechanics. But all of our new leases moving forward, I do want to say it's state landing fees. I want to make sure that any aeronautical entity pays that share of airfield costs.
And one other question about the rent schedule. I see that after it's a 40-year lease, and after that 40-year lease runs its term, then their rent credit balance has expired at that point. It's not unreasonable to think that there would be here longer than 40 years.
Yeah.
Of course, that's up to them and you as obviously as the landlord, but would that be a financial burden on the school district to try to stay beyond 40 years since their credit balance has expired?
Yeah, it's interesting, somewhat related question popped up at the school board meeting last night about that. That's one of the reasons we did accept a 2-year, essentially full credit, 2 years on the initial term, so that they can also ease into just a $50,000 payment. Currently, they do not pay any rent. So that's easing them into this story, or in this scenario. 600 or whatever the market value is in 40 years would have to be negotiated and of course reevaluated at that particular time. I do also want to mention too that the $200,000 rent, we did do a market analysis on this, so we do have a paper to support this $200,000. Would it be a burden? I don't know. We hope not. Both for the district, the school, the stories that have been in the paper of school costs throughout the state, other programs. Remember, this is a tech school too, so they do get revenue and tuition from other districts outside of just Burlington. I think it would be hard for me to answer if it would be a burden or not. Considering the differences in values from today's dollar to 40-year dollar, it would be significantly more, right, even without the credit. So I would assume that they need to make sure that they're planning for that a decade prior to that event coming. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
Or we would do.
Right, Commissioners, anything else for Nick? We have a couple questions for you, Nick. So going back to Chip's question on the capital reserve. So in the packet that's on the website, when I did find it, Schedule 6C is blank. So can you just walk through verbally how that capital reserve fund is populated? Is that something that they're going to front load at the time of construction, or is that something that they sort of, as they're making the rent payments, they'll also be putting a little bit into this fund as time goes along?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I'm not 100% confident in answering that fully. I do remember during the negotiations, that's how the intent of it was the latter, but slowly filling this reserve account instead of a lump sum, which is very similar to Beta and other entities. But I'm gonna have to owe you.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. And then just for reference, the rent schedule D, has an old date for the lease start date, so you may want to update that on packet. And probably the biggest question we have is, so I know that they're gonna relocate out of the alert hangar, and we've talked a little bit about what the future of that looks like, but I don't know if that's changed or if you want to give an update as to the plan for that.
Okay, perfect. So the alert hangars, and for those listening, commissioners, are immediately adjacent to this particular building that we're talking about, just to the north of it. I pointed it to it on Burlington. And these are hangars that where the school district is currently, that was built in the late 50s. And those particular hangars, one, have some safety concerns to it. Two are 70 years old today. And three are geographically kind of in the way of what we're doing down in what we refer to as the valley. So when the school district does move out of these hangars, currently they're located in the center units of the hangar. When they relocate to the south hangar, we have an empty unit. We do have an existing tenant that is currently in those hangars that would like to relocate it. There is actually two different hangars, one on either end of the system. We'd like to relocate so that it can be joined. When that happens, Larry and his team are all performing a historical analysis on this building, which it has qualified as a historical building, which doesn't shock me, but we have to go through some procedures, and we need to make sure that we're committing to the historical analysis process to preserve the facility as much as we can without sacrificing safety, of course, and starting to remove that end hangar so that methodically over time, there's 4 units in this entire hangar, we can start removing. When leases come up, we're not suggesting we're relocating anybody. When leases come up, demolishing each unit one at a time. And then that would expand the space that is down in the valley pretty significantly. That would have multiple tenants all at the same time. Even add more hangar space capability for the athletic data technologies, the technical center, other aircraft that just want to fly in that are not associated with it. So over time, that's what it is. I don't have a timeline yet on the demolition. You really have to do this historical analysis.
It'll be a negotiation and documentation exercise.
With the state,
With the state.
presentation office.
Okay, so you don't foresee any issues with demolition because it's a historical structure?
I don't.
No, it's a no negotiation.
Yeah, it's for,
Yeah,
your best guess is.
Yeah, I don't see any issues. I think there's a lot of preservation that we can do. And here's a plug-in for the Army Guard over in Colchester, right down the road here. They have a really amazing aviation museum on the guard base that is open to the public certain times a day. In that museum is actually a 3-dimensional model of these hangars when they were active. It's really cool. But there's things like that we can help preserve that facility. And hopefully with the negotiations, we can start talking about over a period of time, this could be a decade. How are we going to remove and preserve this historical? But I don't see any major concerns, especially we just moved it at the end. And my hope is within the next year or 2.
Thank you. Richard, anything else? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? We'll move on to item 5.2. Concourse, North Concourse replacement grant acceptance. I'd be willing to entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Finance and City Council the acceptance and execution of an FAA grant related to the North Concourse replacement project is outlined in our packet. So moved. That's moved by Ray. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded by Robin. And discussion be led by Nick.
So I'm once again very excited to start continuously updating you on Project Next, which is our North Replacement Project, Project Next. And Anna's going to put up a quick kind of visualization walkthrough as I talk through the project. What we're asking for you today is not a full approval of Project Next. It's not a recommendation for a contract with our selected construction manager at risk contractor. What today is about is just accepting the $34 million grant that we would be receiving from the FAA. As we walk through this building, you'll see that the second floor of the terminal building, which is where the images that you see right now, would be entirely renovated to open up our second floor facilities, all the way from our brand new building, which is our terminal integration project, through the North Concourse. In just a minute, we're gonna pop into Project Next with the visualization. Today, we're asking for that authorization to sign the grant, a $34 million grant, which will come later this year. However, when it comes really fast, and we need to be prepared to sign the grant. we're gonna continue to update you on both the financials as well as the big contract, which we've gone through a RFP process to select a construction manager at risk, which was Hangar Construction Company. We are now negotiating with Hangar and selecting not only the final design of the project, but selecting they are contractors for this project. This is still the second floor existing space. When we turn to the left here, everything forward that you see is all Project Next. You'll see in the ceiling that this is a mass timber project. We're eliminating as much as we can steel from the project and reducing. Right now, our preliminary estimates are reducing by 4 the amount of embodied carbon that we're going to be using, including transportation costs. Mass timber will go into the facility, a very nice lounge and holding space for 4 new gates that will be replacing the gates that we would be demolishing. Different lines, different furniture, lots of existing furniture, furniture that we currently use. And then up on the top floor, which this visual will start going up in just a second, you'll also see an additional new administration office space so that we can relocate our office admin space out of the way of the second floor. And then we would move to the third floor into a brand new event space just outside our administration offices. And that event space would not only have an interior space for around 70 people in the event space, plus a new conference room, which would be the new Airport Commission boardroom, and an outside patio area, which is just in this upstairs area. You'll also see a lot of natural light coming from here. This space up here would be the new administration offices. So not only would we be able to look into the actual terminal, we'd actually be able to get into the terminal through new staircases very easily. And then this is literally the first time that we're showing this image in public and to you, which is our new 3-dimensional drawing of the mass timber and new lighting and new space. This is also going to be heated and cooled mostly by geothermal technology. We're doing our wells over the next couple of weeks to see how deep we actually need to go to heat and cool this particular building. There will be also photovoltaic solar capability on the entirety of the roof outside of the patio area. So you've seen a lot of this as we've walked through before, but now we're one step closer to actually finalizing and getting the grant for this particular building and showing you pretty much the entire financials, which right now our calculation is 97% of the space in the first floor, which we're not showing you. Obviously, this is second floor. 97% of the space would be eligible for federal funding. When we're talking about a $40 million project, though, it's still a significant amount of local funds that we're analyzing right now. We have a really healthy passenger facility charge program. We have a healthy FAA relationship, of course, with $34 million. With additional FAA funds that most likely we're going to have to pull into this project because the pricing is coming in higher than we were expecting. Again, we're still negotiating and seeing final costs. We have not, I should say, Engelberg has not bid out their subcontracts yet, so we don't know final pricing just yet. And we're also exploring alternate grant funding. Not necessarily because we need it, but because we're going to place new grant funding with a new source, and that's that mass timber. We've never done mass timber here. However, the Northern Regional Border Alliance, which is Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, has programs out there right now that support mass timber projects pretty exclusively. And we're looking at between $500,000 to $900,000 of additional grant funding to come to support the mass timber portion of this. So there's a lot of vision and a lot of process, and a lot of teamwork from literally everybody at the administration team to really make sure that we have a safe airport, we have an accommodating airport for the size of aircraft and the quantity of passengers, with a sustainable airport with this particular building. Both from solar to geo to mass timber to extra energy capability, because we want to support specifically right now United American in installing entirely electric general ground support equipment capabilities, so their tugs and things like that. Right now, we are working with United to install a few, but our energy capabilities don't allow too much more than that. This building will give us the option to really start ramping that up, as well as new jet bridges and more capability out of those jet bridges. Bringing aircraft away from our active taxiways, bringing them closer to the building and attaching them to this beautiful building. Tonight, I'm asking for authorization just for the $34 million, but the $34 million grant. We would be, what I'd like to propose is coming back to you monthly, both with financials, updates, as well as additional authorization specifically with ambulance construction over the next month or so. We're currently going through permitting, and that will happen over the next several months. And once we receive that authorization, our expectation is by the middle to the end of summer that we would invite you to a ground ceremony to start building this project. That's our tentative schedule right now, but it's obviously dependent on permitting and grant acceptance.
Thank you, Nick.
I don't know if Larry, Anna, Marie, Jeff, want to add anything else?
Well, I was gonna say in my report, we will have the amount of it's gonna cost by May 15th, because that's the deadline the FAA is giving us to get this grant this year. So that's over the next month and a half or so. We'll finalize the cost, and that will go with the grant application, figure out how to pay for this. So in the permitting, next in the permitting process will start. It's starting right now, actually.
Our schedule for approval, of course, is starting with tonight at your meeting. Next week, I think it is, the 18th, we would be at Board of Finance presenting the same request. The following week on March 25th, we would be going to the full City Council. On March 20th, we're going to be celebrating this with Mayor Weinberger here at the Terminal Building with a press conference to celebrating not just his work in the project, but also the acceptance of a $34 million grant. My invitation to you to do that, so, and we'll send that out via emails.
I'm sure there's any questions for Nick.
Just a few things. Do you have to, when you accept the 34 million, do you have to show that you have the rest for the project? You do, and we already have, like, Maria's already figured out how to get the rest of the project. And so we're, obviously, it would be ridiculous to accept a grant that can be used, right?
So the 30, well, there's kind of a couple of questions there. So the $34 million would be the federal portion, right? So plus 10% of, well, it's not technically 10% of 34, but minus 10%, you know, the total. So we're talking $39 million project. So that 10% we have to say is how to fund that project. Like I said, we have a really healthy passenger facility charging program that's still eligible for federal funding, but not this particular grant because it's capped at $34 million because it's one of the congressional directed spending grants. Anything outside of that $39 million and ineligible portions of the project, like an administration office, we would have to support. We don't have to show the FAA how we're going to pay for it, but of course we have to show you, the public, and our own administration how and why we're doing that particular portion. We haven't done that yet with the commission. We still have a lot of steps to go through with financials, but between Marie, Larry, Marie and Larry, as well as a consulting team and financial team, outside consultants, we're able to really start summarizing the big picture how much is federal, how much is this grant, and this grant, and how much is local share.
What happens to, like the rest of us try to build a house and they have this thing called project creep. What do we do to buffer against, those kind of things in big airport world?
If we're doing
Very
construction
interesting.
management at risk, for example, if a price increases, which we hope doesn't, the FAA wouldn't cover that, just so you know. But we'll have a solid guaranteed maximum price. Obviously, there's never any guarantee, but that's why we hired Hangar to do that. And then within that, there'll be enough contingency that would hopefully
It's always built.
buffer.
Yeah.
And then we're also the A, so they know where we're expecting all the money to come from.
There's that creep, not just with the design, right, which we've seen, mostly probably on my fault, saying, we really need this differently, or working with Dave and his security program, we need to do this differently, and that's obviously.
Nick needs a much bigger office.
Things will occur like that, but that's all happening right now during the design phase that Engelbert has gotten pricing yet for. During the project, that's really where that scope creep can come into play. And that's, as an example, I'm not saying
I
that
think that's all kinds of extra.
when I walk around with every year because of this reason, that's where we have to be really careful, make sure that's not truly impacting costs to the project. It's gonna happen. I know it's gonna happen. We're gonna find things throughout the actual construction to make it better. And then we'll have to do that cost benefit analysis. Should we do it? And is it worth the dollar to do it? Right now, there's a lot of things in this project that if we don't do now, it's gonna be far more expensive to do it later on. And that's why we're looking at geothermal and mass timber and solar now. Because if we want to add that later on, it's gonna be very difficult.
Also, as you'll find out probably next month, we had some creep in the tip. We're now gonna apply for a grant to pay us back for that little creep of the extra stuff they wanted, so. We'll be applying for a grant this year for that.
Oh, and the last thing I wanted to add is not just are we asking for $34 million tonight, we're actually asking for the authorization to sign a grant. For $34 million, we're actually asking for authorization to sign a grant up to $39 million. We're gonna get the grant for $34 million no matter what. After this process is done, there's some, there's always that fine print at the end of the grant, contingent upon federal funding. There's a way for us to ask for additional grant funding within the same grant over $34 million. Every grant that we're going to send you every year always has the grant amount plus a 15% contingency, which is that $30 million. And again, that's grant costs, not project costs. There's still additional costs associated with this. And I think the most important thing is this is a tiny piece of the authorization process. We're going to be back to you, especially with the big Edgeworth contract, back to you to show every single dollar and where it's being spent and how it's being funded. This is the biggest project probably in the history of the airport.
Bigger than the TSA thing?
Okay, this is gonna be 2 times, maybe 2.5 times the cost.
Considering the size and the scope of this, it sounds like one of the first big days is May 15th to get everything done by that.
Right.
Of course, that's only 60 days.
Right, so after that, I mean, we'll have all those real numbers, right? And from those numbers, we come up with a contract with the name of the construction manager at risk, the guaranteed maximum price. And then we'll have to come back, like I said, with that, to get approval to sign that contract, to move the project forward, while we're waiting for the grant to be issued.
And you mentioned a couple of times that they don't have those bids in yet. But they're well aware of that deadline and they do this all the time, and we're confident that they're gonna have everything in by the 15th or whatever that backloaded date is in order for you all to get the grants.
Yeah,
We have to, because we don't want the price to go up anymore, you know.
in May 15th isn't a hard deadline.
No,
This is a regional request by the FAA.
we have until actually March of next year to apply for this.
Oh,
Yeah,
So,
yeah, this is a congressionally directed spending, so on that legislation, it says the Patrick Leahy Burlington International will receive this grant up to the end of the appropriation time period, which is that March.
but we want this, FAA wants it by May 15th, we want by May 15th, and that's what we're driving. We're at 79% design, we're 80%, we get the pricing done, which is.
And the risk to hold it any further, FAA might not be able to get to it right away, right? We'll send in the application and 4 months might go by. And we don't want that to happen just because of waiting for the FAA.
We're hoping that it's a typical 1 period worst case for grant, in a grant project. That's what we're hoping.
Which would line up really nicely with permitting and construction start and phasing. We have a lot of work to do with the airlines to make sure that they're happy with where they might need to relocate. And throughout really this is going to be a 2-year construction project when it's all said and done. So it's a big time period. So we have work to do, of course, and multiple years ahead of us, when it's all said and done, but we don't, later.
All right, commissioners, anything else for Nick? Or Larry? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. We move on to item 6, which is the financial update from Brave.
Hi, everyone. To find that mute button, right? So you have before you the financial results to the end of January. This year continues to be very consistent. There is our revenues continue to be strong. Our spending and our projects that we have, we really haven't had anything unexpected come up this year so far. So that's always really good news. We are, including through even what's not on here, but as we see what's shaking out with the rest of the expenditures. So we continue to have the grant monies available to us. We are planning to draw down on those grant stimulus monies. We're planning on drawing down quite a bit this year. So that is in process right now and figuring out the exact grants and amounts from each one. We will continue to probably carry forth some of the stimulus money into next year, which is good news and will help us with our budget. Our year-to-date revenues through January were $15.4 million. Our operating revenues continue to drive these higher revenues year over year are really substantial rental car revenues and our parking garage revenues, which are performing very strongly. This is kind of what we expected, but even maybe a little bit better than we expected in terms of the way the garage is performing and the car rental car revenues. All of our metrics are above where we were prior to COVID, with the exception of PFC revenues. And the PFC revenues really trail exactly with our employment. So as our employments get closer and closer to 100% and hopefully will exceed, and we are looking forward to those days are coming, then we will see our PFC revenues also exceed. Our expenses through the end of January were $10.3 million. They are higher than last year. Again, I've been explaining this year that we're doing some pretty large projects and repairs and maintenance, and we have some other higher costs that we knew that were coming in terms specifically. A lot of them are driven by the payroll, both with the reorganization, but a lot of it has to do with just the contracts that we have with the unions and the costs and COLAs and healthcare and things like that. So we're seeing some of that be higher. As well. So, and our cash update continues to be strong. We are at the end of January, we are down from where we have been. We're about $3 million in the bank at the end of January. Not unexpected. We do have some variation as we're waiting for some of these funding amounts to come forth from reimbursements from the FAA. And we're working with the FAA and our consultants on getting that done. The one other thing we don't have that I will mention is last week Nick and I and Jeff Bartley, Larry joined us. We had a meeting with Fitch Rating Agency, and we were able to go through with them and make a presentation for them, or maybe it was actually a week and a half ago at this point. And we are expecting them to come back and give us an update. So we're expecting that shortly in the next week or so. We'll have the results back from that. The presentation went well. They're very good listeners, and they really enjoyed it. We put together a nice package for them in terms of showing how the airport is doing. And we have so many exciting projects and a good story here at the airport in terms of our success and our continued growth, and very stable in terms of what is going on here. So that is my report for the month, but I will entertain any and all questions that you may have.
Marie, any questions for Marie? Marie, I said I have to read this one. So I see that our insurance costs are running higher than the normal pace. I don't know if that's a timing issue. We just paid some premiums earlier, if we're seeing just an overall increase in insurance costs for the airport.
So the insurance is there. We have a combination of insurance. Some we have direct bill insurance that we do for the whole year, and other we do month by month with the city. So we actually pay our direct bill with Hickok and Boardman. There are some items that we insure specifically that are airport related, that are outside of the city. We pay that in August. So we always have sort of a lump sum of insurance that happens. So it's trending than you will the rest of the year. And that's just how the insurance works.
There's other lines related too, but I guess just spotted insurance before.
Yep.
And I didn't see an AAP receivable schedule, so just curious.
Yeah,
I on that, like how that's looking.
Yeah, I did one, but I think I neglected to attach it here. So I apologize for that. But yeah, I didn't upload that when I sent the packet over.
That's fine. Is there anything of note happening in there, or pretty much?
No significant changes from prior month. Our spending is, our projects kind of slowed down in the winter months, so we pretty much are to the point that we've paid off like all of the construction things. So even in January, February, we were finishing up paying some of the construction costs, but those really sit a little bit. We won't have too many we'll say some of these capital project expenditures until we warm up a little bit and we start associating with some of the other projects that are up and coming. So we will slow down, and we are working on just the reimbursements. The outstandings are pretty much the same.
Okay, thank you, Maria.
Great observation. Thank you.
We'll move on to item 7, which is the construction update and planning.
Okay, my report's fairly complete. I will give a few highlights. We already talked about the Burlington Tech Center. We will be submitting site plan application to the South Burlington Development Review Board by the end of this week, pending signatures we need from the school, the airport here being there. So that's moving forward this week. That's what we have now that snow's on and stuff. There will be a little bit of cleanup from last year's construction activity and punch list items that will be completed. The glycol upgrade that we've talked about periodically throughout the last few years here, we do now have a scope and a fee. We're now, I think, we went through the process of getting that grant from the state, the federal government with regard to stormwater improvements. We are now putting that together so we can approach them to have them accept that we can use that money to do this evaluation and then move into design to recycle glycol eventually. Project next, we just talked about that. The only highlight there was that May 15th is we're going to get that grant by May 15th. We're proceeding through the permit process of that. Good news, runway 1533, it is 100% design and Hannah's got it advertised for bid. We will receive bids back and we will apply for a grant for that by April 6th. So that's it's reconstruction, rehabilitation, building overlay of runway 1533.
There's no change to it, they're just resurfacing,
We'll have it.
resurfacing.
Yeah, and despite the short couple sentences in Larry's update, it is by far the most complex project that both Dave and Larry are working on for phasing night work.
Yeah, it's just a 6 hour day.
6 hours.
And that's it, that's getting everybody out there and, you know, milling, paving, repainting, and then.
And then moving them all off.
Yeah, and then also,
Yeah,
obviously, once 60-day period or 30 or 60, I always mix this up. We have to come back and groove and repaint the lines again,
Yeah.
so.
one of the unique factors of this is Dave and Larry put together through a third-party consultants a safety management system plan. To really understand the risks of shutdown and openings and objects being left on the runway, and it was an extensive process that they went through.
First time I've been through, it's kind of neat, and we had all aspects from the FAA involved and a lot of people. We made a couple of improvements on how we were phasing implemented, shrinking a little bit, the part of it, so it's good.
Just out of curiosity, is that gonna add to our lump on 119?
It shouldn't, it should be the same elevation across the board,
So
so,
when you research, it always goes up.
well, it's gonna be a 4-inch mill out, I think, right, 2 or 2, 4-inch mill out, 5-inch mill out, and then a repavement. No.
So while you're there, you know, if you get rid of that little lump. it might
Well,
be
if
good.
you will.
That's on the CIP, is resurface. It's in the CIP, you can do one.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, there's a speed bump in the middle of, right past the beginning of 1 and 19, so as you land between it, it's on 15. The students hit it, so if you ever see them, that'll be a little.
And just to clarify,
The speed bump.
Actually,
I think actually speed.
it just worked out that way. It looks like that if you're landing.
when I land on it, I don't do that, so I don't.
Yeah, because you land after it.
Because I don't think
You're not sure. It is a fun thing, but okay, so that's not gonna, the resurfacing, I'll let them know, the last.
That's all I have, that's it.
All right, thank you, Larry. Any questions? Any questions for Larry?
When are they gonna start?
It will be a spring or weather permitting, 2025 project, because by the time we get a grant, nighttime temperatures won't, work this year. So it'll be next year, so the pricing will come in for next year.
Move on to item 8, which is noise and compatible program updates. Larry again.
Yeah, any highlights? I really have no more to report than what I have in here. Everything is progressing. We're complete with the 15 homes that have been done. We're moving forward with the contract that's already been blessed by Airport Commission and City Council with the contractor. We're working on a few things right now, so we'll get going on those next 50. The next 50, we're probably going to come to that in portions because of some acoustical testing and timing. So we're going to go for 2 times for 2 separate grants for the next phase. But other than that, no other update on that.
Can you give us a quick update on the noise exposure map?
Yeah, so we, it's April is our next.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact date.
So we're moving forward with our next public meeting on that in April. We had one little bit of a delay due to some information we're waiting for from the guard. We've already made the decision how to move forward with that. So well, I know it was April 11th will be our next input from users, and then from there we anticipate wrapping it up by the end of summer, early spring.
Really simple, quick update. Just next door here, we had a storage room that was as in many storage rooms, compiles don't go over time. So that is now completely cleaned out. We were renovating that particular room. And it looks identical to this with black and white walls. Reason I bring that up, information on the exterior of the door, so that would be kind of the forefront of the project, this particular point, until the house that is like a state property is vacated and then we can for office space and that space. So I think no matter what, this would be really great. It is revenue source for us. And you'll see that with the lease agreement next couple of months. Our team's doing that internally too, which is awesome.
It'll be nice having our project coordinator here with us to communicate and that up a lot too.
And people, members of the public can come in and sort of like if someone was not really sure if they wanted to participate in the program, that's one way that they could find out information and speak to people through.
That's exactly right. And see and touch the doors and examples of what they might be looking at from A to Z on what this project actually looks like.
So they can, by touching it and seeing it, they could see that this is a lot better than what we currently have, and it's got to be improved.
That's right.
That person is full-time on this project too. She is communicating with all the, as a project is with the contractor, with the owners and all that kind of stuff, so.
All right, Brandon, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I was delayed at work. Can you just revisit your time frame for the next 50 homes? I kind of missed some of the details.
The next 50, the one, okay, so we're starting construction this summer on the 50 that we received the grant for last year. We will be applying for another grant by May 1 or say for April 26 for not all the next 50, a portion of those. We got beyond the blanket approval, we got the acoustical testing with regard to the DNL line. So it took some extra time to do that. So we will come forward with a portion of those for that grant for May 1. And then we'll come back later this year with another grant application to finish up that 50 that we're shooting for the year.
So was that the grant that Nick, you were talking about where that other community wanted to tag on? Is that the same funding source that you mentioned previously?
No, it's not. Everything that Larry is mentioning right now is part of what I would call our standard FAA grant funding that we know that we're gonna get. The other grant funding is through the Office of Local Defense and Community Cooperation, OLDCC. That we're still waiting for actually their public notification process on even steps are for that grant. They said they were gonna do it in February, but it is not released yet. So no, what Larry's talking about is the approach that we've taken since the beginning. We're just hoping to get more funding with that other program.
And if that happens, we'll step it right up and be more aggressive.
That's right.
I see. Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Regarding the noise exposure map update, so the last technical advisory committee group meeting that was canceled, right, from January or February?
Yep.
Scheduled, or was that just like canceled outright?
No, it'll be April 11th.
Okay, so that's the advisory committee.
Yeah, the next one.
Okay. Is there another public hearing? Is there a date scheduled for a public heering?
There isn't a date yet, but I don't know.
Okay, no date yet?
No, not yet. Once the TAC meetings, TAC meetings are completed. And then we'll publish the actual document with the maps. We'll host a public meeting day, and then there'll be a time frame for on that particular day and a time frame for the public hearing and public comment period as well.
And that will be hybrid?
We're still kind of going through the details on that. Typically, what we do is we'll set up in our, we haven't really determined where the details are. I would, and we've told the consultants, I would like to bring this on the road, so to speak. We had a really successful one in the O'Brien Community Center last time. I think that would be really great for Winooski residents again, and then we'll do the same thing here in South Burlington.
Yeah, we would love to have something hosted in Winooski, of course. By just planning space-wise, the O'Brien Center is going through sale to Champlain Housing Trust. So depending on when the public hearing happens, and some pending construction work, certainly reach out to us and we'll, let our city staff will let you know if the O'Brien Center is still the best option, or if it's City Hall, or even up at the school.
Yeah, okay, thank you for letting us know.
It'll be this summer though, it'll be early summer hopefully.
Yeah, and the transition is happening in June.
Gotcha.
So same timing.
Yep. That's cool.
And then, as far as, the rest of the numbers, that stuff I have, so I'll share with you.
Nothing else for me to add. Claire's report.
All right, Commissioners, anything else for Larry? For minutes? On to item number 9, which is the director's report.
Right, I will try to talk fast and we'll do this. I like to talk about the airport. So last time, just a couple of highlights through the next couple of slides here. Last time we talked to you about the Tampa flight with Breeze Airways. We had our commission meeting in February, and then a few days later, a week later, or something like that, we had our inaugural Orlando flight with Breeze. One, I'm really happy to report that both inaugural flights were just a really fun and successful inaugural process, both in Burlington and in Orlando and Tampa. These are pictures of Jeff and I and the director of marketing at Orlando Airport. On the right hand side there, celebrating the first BTV NCO flight. Well, in this case, it's NCO BTV. Very successful. I'm also happy to report that since those inaugural flights, every single Breeze Airways flights has been over 120 passengers on every single flight. These are, like you mentioned just tonight, these are very popular, very full. Our advertising and Jeff's work on the partnership with Breeze Airways. This is how we do it, and we have a lot of fun doing it. This is obviously an example of Breeze Airways. We do the same thing with each one of our airlines, and that's why our summer schedule is up right now on the schedule. 37% of an increase in number of seats being scheduled starting. So this is going to be, as I mentioned, a really successful forecasted summer months for us. And I'm obviously very excited about that. And then of course we're going to add more flights with Breeze starting in May of this year to the Raleigh-Durham Jacksonville. Again, this is Raleigh-Durham direct with a nonstop to Jacksonville, or what Breeze calls it, the Breeze through. So Breeze is doing really well. All of our airlines are doing really well. At the very end of the presentation, I'll share with you our January numbers, which, as predicted and forecasted, were not as high as last year. That was the one and only month we did not have JetBlue and we did not have Breeze Airways coming in. But I'm pleasantly pleased with the difference. It wasn't a large difference, meaning the other airlines truly are picking up the capacity and the demand that was being flown out of JetBlue's aircraft.
Are they playing Airbus 320s?
Breeze?
Yeah.
220s.
220s. Okay.
220s, yeah. Yep. Which are about 137 seats on board. Project Next, we talked a lot about it tonight, and we're very, very excited. There's a couple of additional drawings These are slightly outdated, but generally, you see the concept here. This is a different angle of the third floor. This is, I think, exactly through the walkthrough, the visualization. And then the schematic drawing, and then you see the third level that I was referring to, which not entirely all of it is the administration offices. And there's a pretty big event space in there as well. And then the patio area, you can see, comes out the door here and would pretty much encompass about half of the area that the admin office. The admin office is less than half of the total footprint of the actual roof itself. And event space. This is also a potential revenue source for us for rental space. March 20th, what is that, 7 days from now, next week? Yeah, next week. Again, would like to invite you, we'll send out details on timing and everything. I believe it's 2 p.m. if Jeff is still on. On March 20th, to unveil more drawings, more plans on what the visualizations will look like and the vision and the concept of the project, like we talked about. 80%, almost 80% completed on the design, and we're working with the numbers with Hangar. Got a couple of other events here as well. Is Jeff still on?
Yes.
Oh, there it is.
Yep, I'm here.
Take it away, Jeff, on this.
Yeah, so we do have a lot coming up. We're excited to begin work with our new mayor, who was elected last week, Emma Mulvaney-Stanek. So she'll be sworn in early April. So there'll be some exciting things coming down on that pipe. The Transcend Eclipse event is really coming to fruition. We have, between sponsors, between giveaways to employees, staff, VIPs, and ticket sales, we're pushing 700 tickets out there. So we're super excited. We have some food trucks working on alcohol. We'll have the portable mini golf and a couple bands will be on site for the event. So things are really coming together. And I want to give a shout out to Dave Carmen, who's been working on the amendments and working with the FAA on approval for this. So we're excited to have the event. It's been a lot of work. It's been all hands on deck putting this event together, and it's super, super exciting.
And then we talked about the noise exposure map update and tech. We just want to make sure you saw that as well. We'll of course, I think we're going to have our next commission meeting before then.
And Nick, I'll just quickly add that for all of the members of the board, we'll send you tickets to the event. If you just let Hannah know how many you'd like, I'll make sure we get those to you. They'll be electronic tickets and they'll come into your inbox.
Speaking of mayoral transition, I wanted to take just a quick moment, a quick opportunity to talk a little bit about our current mayor, Merle Weinberger. He doesn't know I'm saying this is public, but talked a lot with him and learned a lot from him. And I've worked with him for almost 11 years in different capacities. And certainly he will be missed with the city and definitely the airport and with this board here, which is where it all kind of started from. So he would, of course, be ending his term at the end of the month here. Wish him the best in the future. Very excited for him, and we'll continue to work with him, of course, on the projects that he's put a lot of time in the project past. And equally as excited, we have some changes coming. We have a new boss, and really excited to work with Mayor-elect Emma Mulvaney-Stanek, who will be starting her term in just a couple of weeks. I'll be in many of these meetings coming up and working with her and her team. There's still a lot of things that we're waiting for as far as transition teams and working with the new administration of her office. But of course, this is how the transitions occur. Full disclosure, I've never gone through a mayoral transition, of course. This is new for me too. I have met with Emma a couple of times and really eager to start working with her on her vision as well. So welcome, Mayor Mulvaney Stanley. I keep talking about these electric fleets, but I keep getting really excited about them. Now you've seen them unwrap these. The team just did a really great photo shoot, if you will, with them in front of the terminal and air traffic control tower. We really want to start pushing these publicly at what we're doing here. Not only charging them, but also using them every single day and they've been very successful. We generally don't leave this airport anymore if we have to do outside meetings, and we don't burn fuel doing that any longer, which is what the Mustang is being used for, or what we refer to as the Mach 1. We don't go that fast. The two Lightnings, the yellow and it's a dark blue one on the left there, are really used a lot, very operational. Dave and his team uses the yellow one to inspect the runway every single day, multiple times a day, without burning a drop of fuel. And then our maintenance team uses this other vehicle over here. What's really cool is this really starts aligning our goals with an electric fleet with our current tenants. So Beta Technologies is partnering with us on installing all of our chargers for these vehicles at no cost. So they're going to be charging, I think right now they're looking at 3 or 4 of them. And we're still determining the details on where they're located. They'll be mostly out on the airfield side of things, because then one up on the front here so we can display the vehicles. But that's just another example of our partnership with a really great tenant, in this case, Beta Technologies. As far as passenger statistics go, it's blocked off a little bit. Oh no, it's up at the top. So January 2024 compared to 2023, we're off by about 2,000 passengers year over year, which is this top corner over here, so 44,000. You can see 19 and 20. Remember, that was just before the pandemic started. January, February. Really, it took only 2 months in 2020. So we're not quite there prior to the pandemic, but it's consistent with what we've been referring to. Again, just a reminder, back in October of 2023, our highest year in almost 15 years, 68,000 compared to even 2019, which was 66,000 total outbound passengers. The dot is referencing January of 2024 on the chart there, slightly lower than the prior months, prior years, same month. But we are expecting February to be very high, especially with the introduction of Breeze that month, which started January 31st. And like I said before, our forecasted schedule throughout the rest of the summer is going to be higher. The schedule, the passenger seat capacity is going to be higher than what we've seen in the past. So we should see these numbers really consistently not only track the seasonality of what you see on the graph, but my hope is to pass the green line, as I think all of us hope for. The garage is a little bit different. We're still seeing pretty high utilization rates. You can see right now, January utilization rate was 84%, highest that we've seen in a long, long time. Last year, we had some real challenges with our utilization rate. We had to park passengers on off-site lots. This year, we didn't have that problem. We did make some procedural changes. We did not have the capacity to offer the employees throughout the rental cars, et cetera, to park inside of the garage this winter. Most likely that's going to be a permanent change in our policy, because our average numbers really aren't going below 84, 85%. Right now, as we speak, we're at 92% filled in the garage. And that, of course, fluctuates based on college, timeframes, high schools, which was just a week or two ago. Canadian holidays, which was last week. So there's lots of factors to the rate. I don't see we need to change too much with infrastructure right now in the garage. We need to focus on policy first, make those amendments and changes and really look at the data to support anything in the future. And I take that back, there is a little bit of infrastructure that we need to add, not big infrastructure, but gates. We need to just make sure we're controlling the access to some of our offsite lots. So if we do have overflow, we have the capacity in offsite lots to offer them to passengers as well as employees. February numbers, of course, on the revenue side of things, though, are extremely good. Above just over 5.5% February 2023, and 3.5% higher than the February of 2020 and pre-pandemic. So we're doing really, really good in the garage. That, of course, is reflected even more in the financial report that we gave earlier. That is all I have for you tonight.
On the, so didn't we have the major increase in parking garage capacity after 2011? So within our markers, right?
Yeah.
We not only increased the 84%, but 84% got a lot bigger. Right?
Oh, because of the expansion of the garage. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. So
So if we're keeping 84% in a much bigger garage, then we're actually having even
That's a-
bigger than what the program looked like.
That's right. That's right. Which is even better.
Right, so better. So it doesn't really the question though, is the rental car, how much do they pay versus the public for the spots that they get inside?
So they don't generally pay for the spots. Their payment is through their concessions fee, how much they sell. And they're doing really well. They're gonna pay much more than the average public.
Than what we would have gotten if we
Yeah.
just opened those up.
That's right. And the convenience and experience of the passenger, whether airline passenger
much better.
or rental.
Much better.
Much better in that approach, yeah. We're still monitoring them too, what you two and I just had a conversation just before the meeting. We want to make sure that if they are allocating these spots, they use these spots on a consistent basis. Everything so far is indicative of that, but you know, if it changes, we want to make sure we're addressing that and we're offering it to the public. I don't see that changing at all, especially with their revenue numbers that they're showing us, their sales. Yeah, the only changes we've made procedurally to remove, and if you will, add space capacity for the public is to remove both crew parking and employee parking from all of the parking spaces. And generally, we do have the third floor deck closed for the winter season, which makes our teams, just the roof, the exposed section, the snow removal capabilities, so much easier. And the risk of damage to a vehicle is so much lower. This year, we've opened it up earlier than we ever have, so we've also added that back into the total number of spaces, which seems to be.
Where do the employees park now?
So they are in a off-site lot just to the north of the air traffic control building. We actually built a sidewalk and it's near the exit of the
I've seen it.
We've also installed security cameras both in the parking lots, Dave's adding security capacity out there as well. And we've added what we're calling blue lights or emergency lights, similar to what you see on college campuses, all the way out to the garage system as well, or to the parking lot system as well. Further along, we do offer that to beta technologies. That was part of beta lease for those approximately 100 or so 120 parking spaces. So we're filling up, but we're again in need of additional capacity in that lot. That, however, is the lot that we do want gates, access control gates, not only to control employee capacity, but to make sure we don't have public parking in there and we don't have their guards over here. We do give permits and we do monitor that to do once or twice a day. But it still happens. So it's ungated. It's currently ungated.
Speaking of parking, where are a lot of the guests for the eclipse going to park, or do you see that sort of phasing in without problems?
Yeah, we don't, right now, we're not forecasting any issues. We are gonna be using the parking garage for Eclipse parking. And then we'll be offering shuttle buses, because our Eclipse event is going to be on this ramp over here. So the shuttle would be from parking garage to this lot.
Are you using West Valley?
We're gonna be using West Valley, half West Valley.
Wow.
And we don't see any capacity constraints so far in the forecast. We still have a lot of contingencies and backup plans, just to be sure. But right now, our plan is park garage.
And it's secured side of West Valley,
Yeah.
not
it's on-
Pratt Whitney side.
Yep.
And they're gonna use parking in Pratt Whitney, or that's just gonna be for vendors?
Yeah, Pratt & Whitney's been a big partner
Yeah,
coordinating with us, and not only are we using ramp in front of Pratt's building for lots of planes that Dave is working on parking, we're looking at potentially 200 to 300 extra
people are
generators
flying in.
to fly in.
Oh.
It's gonna be a busy week, for the county, not just the airport. But Pratt, vehicle parking would be VIPs or
Yeah.
vendor parking.
You would think also that since people would be flying in, that there would be a high number of rental cars that would vacate
Yeah,
the parking area. And I'm just,
Attention.
yeah.
wondering if that's something that might be able to use in case things get really full.
Yeah, it is. There's some infrastructure that we have to move in the garage. Because the rental car area is also an ungated access to to drive out to the ramp area. Not overly complicated to do that, but it's an option for us. We're gonna be careful too, although this is a extraordinary circumstance, contractually, we've obligated some of that, but we have good partners that they'll good.
All right, Jeff and then Brent.
I lowered my hand. My question was answered. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jeff. Brent?
Just tacking onto that same question, have you talked to Local Motion about bike parking event?
Specifically for the Eclipse event?
Yeah,
No, we haven't, but we can add that to Jeff's growing list of things to do, and we would have a pretty significant bike parking availability on the valley area that we were referring to.
already there, gotcha.
And we do have
Yeah, how many are in the garage?
dozens of parking spots for bikes in the garage, including bike lockers as well.
It'd be, if you're already including information in your information, like the information that you're distributing about like where to park and encouraging bike parking and where to find those spaces would be good.
Yeah.
I mean, if it is at this point, it may be too much to try and coordinate with locomotion, which I totally get that been going on. So sometimes locomotion having that as like a staffed space can be really nice to encourage use. Like they have at Lake Monsters often, and so again, like I get that we're a couple weeks out. I have another event on the 3rd and 4th, and am getting why I was late getting last minute changes. So just asking.
Yeah, if I can speak to that a little bit. That has actually come up in conversation. And it's the belief of a lot of people in this industry or people who do an event from a public safety standpoint, encouraging biking might not be ideal, considering the amount of traffic that we're anticipating on the roads. So I think it's a great idea. I will absolutely include it in the messaging that if you do plan to bike, but I don't think it is something that we want to encourage people to bike to this event. We're also going to be working with Uber, Lyft, and those kind of ride programs to direct them to make sure that they go to they bring their passengers to the parking garage. The state is anticipating a lot of car traffic parking on the side of the road once they find a good place to watch this event. So it's the before and after that, from a public safety standpoint, we're very concerned about.
I hadn't heard that, so thanks for the update.
It's terrible.
It's terrible.
I hate it.
I tried it once. I was
Oh,
terrible.
I've done it many times.
I was biking to the airport.
Yeah.
I went to the back, I went like every back road, it took me like half a day.
Yeah, but she goes like
Something 3.5
Dorset Kennedy all the way around. It's like.
It's shamefully bad for a state that prides itself on biking.
I will reach out to Local Motion. They're a great organization, and see what they're planning. And it might be useful for our conversations with all our community partners that are doing things to make sure that they have a seat at the table.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
Anything else for Nick? Let's move on to item 10, which is commissioner items. Any items from commissioners today? Oh, sorry.
I have one question for Commissioner.
Yes.
If there's any status report from Commissioner Riley.
I'm gonna ask that, but not here, but yes.
I was gonna-
All right. So Helen, I don't know if you're still there, but if so, Nick's put you on the spot.
Literally, are you still here?
Oh, yeah, no. I am here and I understand that my appointment is till June. So I have expressed an interest or willingness to continue. And I will have to, I guess go before the council and apply if that's what they think would be the best thing to do. So that's the status. So you'll see me for a couple more meetings.
I'll fill your application out for you and I'll send it.
Yeah, I just need to have this stuff sent to my home email because I'm blocked out of the city now.
We
So.
Well, she also has a Burlington one technically, right? Yes,
true, yeah.
right, so. Get your choice of where you'd like it to get. Commissioners, anything else? I will note, I was hoping to do a little homework, so I didn't get a chance to, but talking about changes, well, I shouldn't say changes, but usually this time of year, we start to think of the reappointment letter that we write to the city. So just putting that on the radar, so that commissioners will see something from me in the next few weeks about getting that ball rolling. And yeah, I'll put more details there. This is the traditional time of year. We take a look at Nick's performance and we say, do we recommend reappointment or not?
Right.
That's coming up.
Great.
Item 11 is follow-up items. Are there any? I don't think we have any follow-up items carried over from last time. Are there any other topics we want to put on this list for next meeting where we're hoping for follow-up on something?
Follow-up question.
That's on the sinking fund of the that's fine. All right, I think.
I just have one announcement.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Winooski Bridge, they're having their next public hearing. I don't have the date, but I can share that with you, Nick and team. The focus on this next public hearing is the intersection just on the Burlington side of the bridge. So it will be focusing on that intersection. So if there's interest to attend, I wanted to make sure you all had that on your radar.
It's a big shortcut for people to come to the airport.
That's going to be an enormous project in terms of how it's going to affect a lot of people. I don't relish you having to deal with that. It's clearly important, but wow.
Is there anything else? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. This was by Greg, second.
I'll second that. You need it?
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye. Okay.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.